Hi, I'm Amy Auset Rohn.
At what point did you feel that you had psychic abilities in your life?
I've always been very close to God. Growing up, very religious in the church, I felt like I had a personal relationship with God in much the same way that I feel I have a close and personal relationship with Isis now. As far as my psychic abilities, I feel like I really began to explore that and open that up about 8 years ago.
And what was the catalyst for breaking that open?
I met a woman who taught meditation classes, and I started going, and I never meditated before, but I at the time was watching John Edward crossing over on TV, fascinated by it, and believed that there was something to it. And so I had a lot of questions like, how does this work, and how do you talk to dead people, and how do you read cards, and all of these things. And so it just, once I started going to meditation class and started I started reading the Doreen Virtue books and Ted Andrews, and it just all started opening up.
Being brought up in the church, how did you feel about deviating from everything that you were ever taught as a child to maybe believing something different and transforming that into something completely different?
It all happened gradually over time. When I graduated from high school, I went to college at IUPUI here in Indianapolis, and I had to take a religion class. First day in class just blew my mind because the professor had the audacity to suggest that the Bible was not the Word of God. I went home to my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I don't know if I can handle this class or not. And he's like, yeah, I understand. And so I dropped it. Well, I spent that year at IUPUI. I made a lot of new friends. They were from Korea. They were from Sri Lanka. They were Buddhists. They were Muslims. They were Islamic. They were Catholic, Methodist, Episcopalian. And I just saw them as people. And suddenly it just kind of started to dawn on me that we're all just people. And it doesn't, as long as you're kind to one another, it really didn't matter that you believed that God was in the form of an elephant or a cow. It was okay. And then when I transferred to a college in Kentucky to get my equine degree, because I'm a horse lover, I took a religion class there, and by then I ate it up. We talked about the temples and how they used to spend the night in the temples for healing and for dreaming, and I was ready at that point. So it was a very gradual kind of a life lesson experience for me. It wasn't something that, oh, okay, I've been presented with this and now I have to change everything that I grew up with. It really happened very organically and over time.
So how has heaven changed for you?
Heaven, when I was growing up, was out there. It was up there. It was somewhere on the other side of the clouds, on the other side of the blue. It was on the other side of the stars and all the galaxies. It was somewhere far away out there. Doing this work now, and doing finally when I opened up to mediumship, which is being able to talk to other humans that have crossed over and passed away, heaven is here. I feel like it's a parallel universe with ours. I feel like the spirits are among us. It's a part of where we are now.
Do you have any types of advice that you would give to somebody who's never had a psychic reading, who maybe thinks about it and is a little worried or whatnot? What advice would you give?
Don't be afraid. We're not talking to the devil. Good psychic readers work with your highest good in their heart. They want to help you. They want to give you guidance, to give you clarity. And so many times I'll start a reading with someone, I'll look at the cards, I'll do a quick synopsis, and I'll say, does this make sense to you? And I look at them and they're in tears, because it doesn't mean that I have to say, you're going to lose your job tomorrow, or, like what came to me, you're going to be in a car accident or things like that. It's just words that I need to say to them that they need to know that they're doing the right thing, and that they need to know that it's not their fault, or that they need to know that rest is important and that stress is really affecting their body, and to pay attention to that. So it's my intuitive readings or psychic readings are also kind of like life coaching or spiritual coaching, because I'm getting information that they need to hear, so it's not going to be death and doom. And people sometimes ask about a loved one, how long they have, and sometimes I get that information, and sometimes the universe says they haven't decided yet, and so I can't give them a time when that will be. So I have the person mix the cards, think about what their issue is or their question. If they don't have one, that's fine, then they're just open to the most important messages that the universe has for them that day. I do have a couple of specific cards. I use the Anubis Oracle by Nikki Scully. I have a couple of cards that are indicators for me, that, okay, I need to check in here. And then the other cards kind of open that door to allow that person. And so then I begin to feel if it's a man or a woman, if it's an older person. A lot of times what they do is they identify dates that are important to my client. So whether it's a birthday, an anniversary, a date of death, I'll talk about, or they'll tell me how they passed. I'll feel heaviness in my chest, or I'll feel a pain in my side. It just comes in. I don't even know. I don't know how to explain how the messages come in. It's just I see it in my head, or I get a sense of just knowing. Knowing that 1978 is important, knowing that grandma used to make fried chicken on Sundays and you loved the smell of that, and you had a flower fight one morning in the kitchen with her. How am I going to pull all of that out of anywhere? It's very specific to the person.
For anybody who has psychic ability who is scared or frightened in discovering it, what would you say to them?
You don't have to allow anything in your energy field or in your intuitive vision that you don't want there. When I started opening up and was all of a sudden feeling spirits around me or angels, things of that nature, I didn't like, I call them the dead people. I didn't like feeling the dead people. They're very thick, they're very cobwebby, cloudy feeling, and I would see them everywhere. And it's not that I see them with my physical eyes. There are some people that do that. I'm glad that I'm not one of them. But I would see them in my mind's eye, like when you read a book and then and they're describing the scene, it's envisioning it that way. So I would see them everywhere, and I was just like, I don't want to see them anymore. And so I asked, I was working with one of the archangels at that time, and I just said, hey, I don't want to see them. So you don't have to allow anything in that you don't want. You have complete control over that. And so, when a friend of mine, she's also a medium, was asking me, some questions and saying, why don't you do mediumship? And because she said, you are a medium. And I kept saying, nope, I'm not. I'll let other people do that. I'm not doing it. But then they kept showing up in the readings with people. And so finally, at that point, I was really working heavily with the Egyptians. And so I used Anubis as my gatekeeper. And so I think of myself and my client as being in the club where everyone wants to come in. And so there's a red velvet rope, and Anubis is there, and he only allows the ones in that are relative to my client, because I don't need Joe Smith coming in giving them all kinds of information, and they, just because they can talk to me, sometimes they'll sneak through, but a lot of times it becomes very clear. So
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.